But speaking of which, great segue. Speaking of Ukraine, Stephen McBride. H, are you going to go Ukraine when Starmer sends troops? No, mate. No. I think Keir Starmer is a... Look, loads of people... I actually think the naming convention that's happened in mainstream media surrounding our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is actually detrimental to the public's risk aversion. Because Keir Starmer is a true authoritarian dictator. He is absolutely unequivocal an ideologue. And he's dangerous. He's a dangerous man. And these like two-tier Keir, three-gear Keir, it actually... It risks the public downplaying just how dangerous he is. And he really is a dangerous man. He wants to risk peace for reasons. I don't know why. Like, why do you suddenly now want to be like, well, we're going to put British troops on the ground, actually? Right. Why didn't you do that before? You're only going to do it right now when there's peace being brokered. It's funny how British prime ministers have a knack for destroying the peace talks. Both times we could have had peace, and both times a British prime minister is looking to destroy that. Bit weird. But no, to answer your question, Stephen, no, I will not go to Ukraine. I will not go fight in the most... what was or is the most corrupt country. No thanks. No. I don't think either Russians or Ukrainians deserve, essentially the killing fields that are happening there. I think it's disgusting. Like hundreds of thousands, if not millions now. I don't know, genuinely. The deaths, the untold harm that's happened to entire lineages, gone, wasted. It's done. Like that's generation after generation, all gone now. I think it could have all been avoided. And I don't think anyone, this isn't pro-Russia. It's not pro-Ukraine. I think both governments are shit, right? And I think people are getting caught in the crossfire needlessly. And I just think Starmer is a dangerous man. I think he's a dangerous, dangerous man. That is a true dangerous authoritarian ideologue. So, yeah. What about you, Bo? You're gonna march on down to Ukraine?
No, someone in the chat, is it Michael K, 19th century fan, said Kiev not worth the life of one grenadier. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. It's not our war. It's got nothing to do with us. I did a long piece of content a while ago now, a year ago, 18 months ago or so, with a true genius, all about the long-term story of between Kiev and Moscow. And do you remember there was a long-form interview that Tucker Carlson did with Putin in the Kremlin, and Putin just talked for ages, like a few hours, and he was going back to like the 9th century. The story does go back that far, and Russia in the 20th century had two seismic things: the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917 and the collapse of the Soviet project in 1989. Politically, two seismic things. And then in the early 21st century, like 2014, 2015, all that stuff, it's such a long, complicated story. So just to say that Putin is just this modern day Hitler with blind aggression, stealing land from the Ukrainians who didn't do nothing, and that the State Department had nothing to do with it, and all that sort of thing, it's just too low resolution. The true story is extremely complicated, and there aren't really goodies and baddies. And I wouldn't dream of going to fight, joining the TA, the Territorial Army, and being sent over to Ukraine to keep the peace in the Donbass. Yeah, no thanks. You're kidding me? No. And it's a great point you make. Why? Yeah, Keir Starmer's really pro-war for reasons. Yeah, academic agent, aka Dr. Nima Parvini, did a video just recently talking about it's almost inexplicable. It's very, very hard to figure out why Britain is so bellicose and hawkish on this stuff. Maybe it's just institutional memory, the fact that we've been geostrategic enemies with the Russians ever since the 19th century, with the small hiatus of when we were allies during World War One. Other than that, they've been our complete enemy all over the world, and maybe that's just so hard baked into like our foreign office and our executive that they just can't stop themselves. There are, of course, like the Alexander Litvinenko murder, and again, the story is very, very complicated. But yeah, no, I won't be going to fight on the behalf of Ukraine and the most corrupt person in the world, Zelensky. No.
Well, yeah.
I'm too old to draft, so
you won't. This is literally just a British thing, it seems. Unfortunately, you're fine over there, mate. Then you worry about it.
I'm not gonna.
Fine.
But I know a lot of feminist women I'm willing to send.
Yeah. Dangerous.
Yeah, they're all on TikTok. I can point them out real easy.
Oh, what happened recently? I think it was Olaf Scholz, the Chancellor of Germany, walked out of the European meeting with Starmer. He was like, "Why are you saying this? This is ridiculous." Like, he literally got up and walked out of the whole conversation. Apparently, with talking about sending European troops, he was like, "No, we're not doing that."
Yeah. I mean, he's deeply unpopular. Yeah, he's deeply unpopular in Germany as it is. He doesn't need more trouble. I mean, their government collapsed. In the elections, if the AfD pulls off a miracle, can you imagine Germany rising back up as an industrial power? Since joining the EU, you guys have pushed them so far into the greens that not you specifically, but the UK and other of the folks in Europe have pushed them so green, they've destroyed all their ability to produce their own power and therefore become the economic engine that they once were. So energy is what makes everything go forward, and it drives an economy, and it keeps the costs of goods down. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be. I mean, like,
not to mention the Nord Stream 2 sabotage.
Yeah, if the AfD doesn't get in, then if the AfD doesn't get in, I hate to say it because it sounds brutal, but I think it's true. If the AfD doesn't get in, the German people deserve everything that's going to happen to them and has been happening to them. And I know it's awful to say because they've been just attack after attack after attack after attack. But if you're not going to wake up at a certain point, I mean, Jesus, come on now. Seriously. Like, you can't. Babies being murdered by Afghan immigrants, asylum seekers. No, like, come on. These things, like, at a certain point, if it's once in a decade, that's an isolated incident. If it's once a month, once a week, then you've got a massive problem. Once in a decade is an isolated incident. And that's the famous word that they like to use, isn't it? The famous phrase. It's just an isolated incident. Just an isolated incident. Yeah, it would be if it was once a decade, mate. If it's once a month, once a week, that's a huge issue. And if you don't do something about it, which they can in their elections, they can fix that. They have the potential chance to completely change their demographic breakdown and then change actually the complete power of the EU. Because if the AfD get into Germany, that changes the entire tone of the EU massively. Just get rid of them all. Just get rid of them all.
I can understand why Germany are not chomping at the bit to get involved, to stand toe to toe against the Russian army. They did that once before. It didn't work out too well for them. Yeah, I mean, it's the same for most countries in Europe. You know, if we don't vote in governments that have got our own native best interests at heart, then we sort of, it's our own fault, really. I mean, look at Sweden. Someone in the chat mentioned Sweden. We've done a number of pieces of content on notices about Sweden. There's grenade attacks, bombings every day nearly in Sweden by their Muslim immigrant population exclusively. It's madness. It's a war zone.
Norway really kind of destroyed themselves, as has Sweden. But the citizens in Norway would like to turn the tables back to the way they were. The Swedish citizens are too malleable to do much, it seems. So it's a little bit of, it's two different takes from Scandinavia as far as of my reading of the room. But
disgusting.